This is the Yanks Go Yard podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carannante.
Welcome to the Yanks Go Yard podcast. I'm Adam Weinrib alongside Thomas Carannante. Another nationally televised game between the Yankees and an inferior opponent at some sort of national showcase. They love to put the Yankees in these. Field of Dreams, Little League Classic, Water Park, the Moon, the Coliseum. It's going to keep happening, and the Yankees are going to keep losing them. So that's what we have to look forward to. A weekend that would have been full of drudgery regardless of a win or a loss yesterday, to be perfectly honest. Yankees polished off the final two in Chicago. Hand claps to you. You beat the White Sox twice. It needed a late game comeback and a daring escape in the ninth inning by Jake Cousins. But by God, you beat the 1962 Mets-esque Chicago White Sox two times in a three-game road series. Go to Detroit, win the first game of the set on Friday. Clean victory for Gerrit Cole, 3-0. Underwhelming offense. Anthony Volpe dropped a pop-up. But all things considered, nicer to come away with 3 wins in a row than 3 losses or a 1-2 record or a 2-1 mark, whatever. Going to Saturday's game, patented Rodon stinker in the heat. Keider Montero shuts out the Yankees. 4-0 shouldn't be disqualifying, but it was. They didn't even scratch one across, leading you into Tarek Skubal, Marcus Stroman on Sunday Night Baseball. And you're like, hey, this is either going to get rained out, according to the forecast, or it's going to be an L because Marcus Stroman's been bad for 2.5 months and Tarek Skubal's the AL Cy Young. So it is what it is. All of a sudden, we're likely to lose a series to the Tigers. And we'll get on this podcast on Monday and talk about how you had to win the Saturday game. And once you didn't, it was going to be tough to win the series. The Yankees can regroup. Not every game is a killer. And all of that's true. Not every game is a killer. Yanks are still tied for the division lead. Yanks are now 6 up in the loss column on a playoff spot. Fantastic. But 8-7 in the soft part of the schedule this month. Haven't built the lead at all. The Orioles, it's not even opening the door anymore. They kicked the door down and they're telling construction crews who are returning to the house to try to put the door back up that they don't want it back up. That's how open the door is for the Yankees to take the AL East, and they won't do it. They lost ground yesterday again. And if they had again lost 6-2 to Tarek Skubal, 8-1, we would be talking about how the run differential took a hit, but they were set up to fail against a Cy Young candidate. And it would have been an equal bummer that they got embarrassed on a national stage, but we would be moving on from that series pretty quickly. Instead, 1-0 lead into the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs. Clay Holmes with a runner on second and 1 out strikes out Spencer Torkelson. Great job. Jace Young steps to the plate. 1-1 count. Single ties the game through the hole. Of course, they go on to lose in extras. They blow a 2-1 lead in the 10th, but that's not even blowing because that's a 2-1 lead is like a tie in modern extra innings. So not a real lead, and you blew it again. Congrats to you. The game was lost when Holmes couldn't close the door as per usual. That's his 10th blown save of the season. The Yankees are 3-7 in those games. Please clap. They've won 3 of Clay Holmes' blown saves. Very proud of them. But that's 7 losses they should not have on their ledger. And of course, we're at the point of the season where the graphics are going around. Yankees aggregators are getting the screenshots of what the scoreboard looked like before Holmes did his disaster. And you're like, man, surely they didn't lose all those games, all those clever captions, etc. But it's really starting to pile up. It's enough ninth inning malfeasance that you're starting to realize, oh, wow, yeah, we really could have been in a great, not just good position if we had a lockdown closer, could have finished off 4 of these. Is that asking too much? You're going to blow some saves, but here's the thing. Good teams don't blow that many saves. Good teams don't lose that many games where they have a ninth inning lead. And good teams certainly don't have closers with 10 blown saves. The last World Series champion to have a closer with 10-plus blown saves, Jason Isringhausen of the 2006 St. Louis Cardinals. Shout out to Joe Randazzo for pulling that up. Last one to do it before him, Jeff Reardon in 1987, when a save meant go 3 innings of shutout ball, and if you can't, you get a blown save. Different game. So the only modern closer to have that many blown saves and win the World Series is Isringhausen in 2006. And Clay Holmes, by the way, it's August 19th. He's got 40-plus more games to rack up more blown saves. We're talking about 10, like it's 10 and that's it. And 10's usually a line in the sand where you can't come back from that. It's 10 on August 18th. Yeah. So we got some time here. Good thing Brian Cashman shored up the bullpen at the deadline. Oh my God. No, he didn't at all. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Jasson Dominguez's one day in Major League Baseball. Hope he enjoyed it. Ultimately contributed to the loss as well. Plus the pieces the Yankees gave away at the deadline are great. and we're kind of sucky. So we'll talk about all that. We'll talk about the series. We don't want to, but we will. And the Guardians come to town tomorrow. The Yankees are at home. They typically play worse at home versus being on the road. I don't know if you count the Little League Stadium as the road or home or what have you, or neutral site. Either way, sucky game last night. 1 run scored in the last 18 innings of regulation baseball. Added 1 in the 10th. Cool. Love the New York Yankees. We'll talk about it. Thanks for joining us here every Monday and Thursday, 2 o'clock Eastern, live on YouTube and on all podcast platforms afterwards. Joining me, as always, after that extended, unnecessarily long monologue, just check the clock, is Thomas Carannante. Thomas, thank you for joining me.
Thank you. I mean, we don't have to analyze this series again. Another 3-game set where we come out of it and it's like, what do you want us to tell you? There's nothing to look at. Nothing particularly interesting. Nothing particularly revealing. It's all the same. All that it's doing is telling us that the Yankees have flaws that are alive and well, that are going to hold them back in the postseason, and there is nothing we can really do about it anymore. The trade deadline has passed, unless there is a miracle waiver claim between now and the end of the month.
Ahmed Rosario can't come out of the bullpen, unfortunately. Yeah. Also not on our team. Beloved Cincinnati Red. Good claim by the Reds. Very helpful.
Yeah. And you look, the first flaw, we talked about the number one flaw. Everyone was so concerned about pitching leading up to the deadline, and we didn't disagree with that, but we looked at the lineup and we were like, look, the pitching staff has largely carried its weight this year. The offense has been boom or bust, and it's been Judge and Soto, and then flip a coin for who's going to be 3 and 4 behind them. So Brian Cashman went out and got Jazz Chisholm, I think a very good player, not an impact type bat that is going to turn your fortunes around on offense, though he proved otherwise in his early going in his 14 games before getting injured. Nonetheless, right after impact bat was bullpen. Mm-hmm. And what did Brian Cashman do? He went out and he got Mark Leiter Jr., who we kind of shrugged at. Yes, dirty split finger that had apparently a lot of swing and miss stuff. He was good against lefties. Not much of that has proven to be true up until this point. And Enyel De Los Santos from the Padres, who was designated for assignment over the weekend or late last week and picked up by the Chicago White Sox, who forced his DFA by whipping him around for 7 earned runs in 1 2/3 innings during that series. So,
and again, the White Sox have 90+ losses.
Yes, so the worst team you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And you know what? I will partially, I'll give the Yankees a 5% benefit of the doubt, because when there's a managerial change, teams are a little bit more motivated. Pedro Grifol kicked out of town.
Got to be one of the worst managers of all time.
Grady Sizemore takes over, former big league player, a lot of insight, can probably connect to the players a little bit better. White Sox were a little bit more motivated. They captured that game last Monday. I know they embarrassed the Yankees. Still unacceptable on the Yankees end, but there is an element there of added motivation that the White Sox have not had literally all season. So bad timing, but still, you're a championship caliber team. You should be able to sweep the White Sox and not score what? They scored 2 and 3 runs, and then they erupted for 10 runs in that one game, and that was in the 8th and 9th inning, or the 7th and 8th inning, after they had squandered a million opportunities before then. So the offense still lacking consistency. 20 runs over their last 6 games with that 10-run game in between. So as you can see, the averages might, even with the 10-run game, still barely over 3 runs a game, which is not acceptable against the Tigers and the White Sox. Even more damning Clay Holmes stat. Clay Holmes converted his first 13 saves of the season. He has 26 saves on the year. He has blown 10. So out of his last, what did I just say? He has 26 on the year?
Yeah.
Out of his last 13 or 33 save attempts, he has blown 10 of them. So he's blown a third of all of his save attempts since the middle of May. Clay Holmes was deemed a major problem once June came around. We have seen this story before. He is lights out, and then once there is any sort of downturn in his pitch selection, his mechanics, his velocity, whatever it may be, he is one of the most hittable pitchers you have ever seen. He was not finding his groove last night, leaving way too many pitches up in the zone, gets victimized by bad/inexperienced hitters. And here we have it. I understand that. Oh, and you want to look at even more concerning stats regarding Clay Holmes that, again, the Yankees wrote off because, remember, they made one acquisition for the bullpen because I'm not counting Enyel De Los Santos. We all knew he was fodder. We knew he was going to be designated for assignment by the end of the month. He barely made it 2 weeks with this team.
Mm-hmm.
For Clay Holmes, the more concerning stat is 26 saves, 36 save opportunities. So he's blown 10 of them. Even worse is that that's one of the more discouraging conversion rates. Craig Kimbrell, did he lose his job in Baltimore? He's on the cusp of losing it.
I don't see him closing. I mean,
Yeah.
Serna Dominguez closed the Red Sox over the weekend. I haven't seen Kimbrell get the ball in the save opportunity.
Kimbrell is 23 of 29 in save opportunities. So the Orioles felt the need to make a change after 6 blown saves from Craig Kimbrell in 29 opportunities. The Yankees saw no reason to make a change when Clay Holmes was completely coming off the rails over the last 2 months and just simply decided that it would be Mark Leiter Jr. and a bunch of guys coming back from injury who we have next to no updates on, by the way. All these guys that were supposed to come back, Ian Hamilton, Scott Effross, Nick Birdie, Lou Trevino, there is just very minimal surrounding all of them. And then again, how much more of an upgrade are any of them going to be over whatever we have right now in the bullpen? And how many of them are going to be able to absorb high leverage back end innings? In my opinion, 0, because they are not going to be ready. They've been injured for a while. They have not seen enough major league action this year or last year. And now we're going to run into the same problem that we do every year. Brian Cashman left the cupboard dry after this trade deadline. We tried to remain optimistic for as long as we could. We looked at the stats and the peripherals on Mark Leiter Jr. We were optimistic about Jazz being a team player and taking over the starting third base job and adding Lefty Pop into the lineup. We even said, hey, Enyel De Los Santos can throw hard. Maybe they can unlock something there and he could be a great last guy in the pen to help lengthen this out. Nope. All of it's a failure, and we can get a little bit more into Brian Cashman's bargain bin trade deadlines that have haunted this team forever, because I do have a theory, which coincides with Jazz Chisholm's injury. But yeah, Clay Holmes, legitimate problem. These are the games where the Yankees have to capitalize and gain some sort of cushion on the Orioles and the rest of the pack in the AL. The AL is completely wide open. They are not doing it. To me, they are not a serious team.
Yeah, why is there an Orioles fan? Why is there an Orioles fan in the comments saying that we're not doomed, and if a team is doomed, it's the O's? I mean, who are the O's missing right now? You're missing Jordan Westburg and Heston Kjerstad from the offense. That's a bummer. I was told that the Orioles just had endless young depth, and we've seen it. Jackson Holliday stepping up recently. Yeah. The Orioles lineup is, I mean, when's the last time you looked at the Yankees lineup? It's 2 guys. Haven't you guys been making fun of us all year for having just 2 guys in the lineup? Well, now suddenly we're in a fantastic position, and it's the Orioles who were doomed. I thought the Orioles had endless replicants who could fill in, holes late. The Orioles bullpen is a real issue. So is the Yankees bullpen. That's all we're saying. If this was an Orioles podcast, we'd be complaining about the O's bullpen, but it's not. So we're complaining about Clay Holmes, who didn't allow an earned run until May 20th. And so I think, and I'm as guilty as anybody of letting that skew me. But now that we're looking back at things and we have, the benefit of hindsight and the eye of modernity, and we know he's blown 10 saves over the last 2.5 months, we can look back and say, well, that 0 ERA included an inning on opening day where he allowed 3 hits and was bailed out by Juan Soto's throwing arm. So he should have blown his first save of the year against the Houston Astros. His first save opportunity of the year, he secured it because they threw a runner out at the plate. That's noteworthy. He also allowed 3 runs on 1 hit in an inning and a third against the Arizona Diamondbacks, but because of the ghost runner, his ERA remained at 0 and his FIP increased all the way up to 4.09. So after his first 4 outings of the year, 4 1/3 innings, no earned runs allowed, but 6 total hits, and his FIP was at 409. That's not promising. Then he caught a heater from April 6th through May 20th. Good for him. Only had one subpar outing. It was that Friday night against the Rays where he walked 2 and was bailed out on some called strike threes. Good for him. Good stretch. But since then, beyond untrustworthy. And it's not to say, like, look, I'm sure there are teams with worse closers than Clay Holmes. We're not sitting here and saying, he's the worst closer ever constructed, pitch to contact closers while I'm stressed out by them and the Yankees infield defense doesn't appear to be competent enough to account for him. They can work. Raisel Iglesias of the Braves, one of the best closers in baseball, pitch to contact guy. And it's also not to say that a closer is doomed forever because he's struggling during one stretch or during a whole year. Manuel Clase last year had 10+ blown saves and is right back to being the most dominant force in baseball this year. But right now, Clay Holmes is not a World Series caliber closer.
No.
He's not. End of story, which leads to this being, I would say, Brian Cashman's worst trade deadline of the triumvirate of bad trade deadlines the last couple of years. And I'm not even counting 2021. I'm not counting Joey Gallo for 40-man roster fodder plus Anthony Rizzo. Compared to 2022, 23, and 24, that's a great trade deadline. Gallo was a good attempt. It didn't work. Right? Yeah. Didn't work. I don't think Joey Gallo is a winning baseball player. I think we all got our eyes on Joey Gallo in the spotlight and realized exactly what had happened and what had gone wrong. But Joey Gallo that summer, for what Brian Cashman gave up, Ezekiel Duran's the only one who is hurt, and he is back in the minors. He is not a part of the Texas Rangers' future, ostensibly, at this point. And Rizzo was supposed to be a Red Sox, was a Yankee, was great that summer for a bit. Then he got sidelined. He came back. He wasn't quite the same, but still solid player, solid Yankee. I'll remember him relatively fondly. His career got ruined because he got a concussion. 2022, Brian Cashman made huge moves. Was he going to trade Gleyber Torres for Pablo Lopez? Kind of feels like he was. Left the rotation relatively barren. Jordan Montgomery out. Frankie Montas in. No additional help in. Luis Severino on the 60-day IL, screaming at the team for placing him on that IL. Harrison Bader eventually contributed to that team down the stretch and into the postseason. But we've talked about what a catastrophic chemistry failure that was, shipping out Montgomery. And obviously, the pitching additions they made weren't additions at all. Frankie Montas barely participated in that season. That would be the worst trade deadline that we could recall from pretty much anybody. If 2023 hadn't happened, when they didn't sell anybody from the most sellable team, IKF, we laughed at him as a trade deadline asset last year. Look what the Blue Jays got for IKF this year. On a rebound, to be fair, but you don't think a great GM could have plucked somebody like Charles McAdoo last year for IKF? Big bat, big numbers, limited track record, unclear prospect, pedigree, potential, but something buried below the surface. The Yankees sold nobody last year, just traded for Keenan Middleton. So 2022 and 2023 fighting it out, slugging it out for the worst trade deadline. And then look, here comes 2024, because I like the Jazz Chisholm trade.
Yeah, same.
Still do. And he's here through 2026. And you saw him at the Little League Classic. Reports of him being a clubhouse cancer were greatly exaggerated. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but we know what's going on in front of them. Seems like a genuine soul, but more importantly, seems like a versatile baseball player with power, with pizzazz. 7 home runs in 14 games. You can't beat it. Jared Serna popping off right now for the Marlins. He was going to be a Rule 5 guy at the end of the year anyway. And hey, look, it helps to give to get. That's how you make trades. Yeah. Maybe Serna will be a good big leaguer for the Miami Marlins. I'm pretty confident Jazz Chisholm will be one for the New York Yankees. Looks good all around. Don't mind that. Wish he was active right now. Cool that he might be back by the end of the season. But the most important thing for the Yankees to do was go beyond Jazz in revamping the lineup, get rid of players like Gleyber Torres, who's still here and still ineffective. DJ LeMahieu deserved to be de-emphasized. He's still here. He's still ineffective. We thought Jazz was going to be the first step towards figuring out this logjam of players whose eras have expired. No need for Gleyber Torres down the stretch into the postseason. And yet, the Yankees' plan was just stick Jazz somewhere he's never played before, and there's no part B. We're just adding athleticism to third base, hoping he'll figure it out. So demerit number 1, got Jazz, didn't do the rest. Should have gotten Ahmed Rosario or an Ahmed Rosario type. Alas, he went to the Dodgers. The Dodgers cut him after 2 weeks. Now he's a Red. He's in purgatory. But even more important, if there was ever a deadline to overpay to shore up your biggest weakness, it was this one. because the Yankees, with a giant, glaring, unfixable weakness at this point, handing the ball to Clay Holmes at the end of close games that are made too close because the offense doesn't work as a consistent unit regardless. But Holmes is the last guy in the bullpen and will be through the end of the year. In the bullpen of a team that is among the best teams in baseball inexplicably. And some of that is the 50-22 start, but a lot of that is the fact that a lot of baseball is mediocre to solid. There are some very good teams. I would call the Yankees good, not very good. But there are plenty of teams on pace for 90 to 95 wins. The aforementioned Orioles, the Phillies, who are at the front of the pack and have slipped back just like the Yankees. The Dodgers, who might not even win the NL West anymore and have more talent than anyone star power-wise, but are a lot like the Yankees. It gets thin very fast. The rotation lost River Ryan over the last week. There's not a lot there and not a lot to look forward to. Glass now injured again. Yamamoto, when does he come back, and who is he when he comes back? Everybody's got problems. The Minnesota Twins and Royals have just as much of a chance of winning the World Series as any of those teams. The Boston Red Sox are not in the playoffs right now. They look just as strong as most of those strongest teams in baseball. This really is right in front of them. Like, it actually is. I mean, it's not because we know what this team, it's not likely to be, because we know what this team looks like when they're not firing on all cylinders. They haven't fired on all cylinders since early June. It's unlikely but possible the Yankees ride a heater through the postseason. The Rangers last year had a horrific bullpen until they didn't. Until Josh Sborz was excellent all postseason long, and Jose Leclerc held up just enough, and they won the World Series against an upstart Diamondbacks team that was below 500 for a lot of the year, but rode a heat wave into the World Series. The Yankees could do that this year. There's no big bad standing in their way, unless it's, as always, the Houston Astros, who might be the best team in baseball after being 10 games under 500 towards the end of May. But knowing you had maybe not a championship caliber roster in most seasons, but a championship caliber roster this season with the current competition, if reinforced properly, the Yankees kept several struggling players in their starting lineup. And to fix the bullpen, they brought in Mark Leiter Jr., a reclamation project, guy with advanced metrics and strikeout stuff, but the ERA hovered around 4, and it was only around 4 because he'd just thrown 6 2/3 perfect innings prior to coming over to the Yankees. Reliever ERAs go up and down all the time. His was going down because he'd been great right before the deadline. Spoiler alert, he's been pretty awful since his first couple outings in pinstripes when he had some fun escapes, and going to be thinking about those fondly forever. And Yel De Los Santos, no longer a Yankee, was the second bullpen addition, not on the team anymore. Overpay for Tanner Scott this year. I wish they had traded for Tanner Scott in spring training. I wish they had traded for Tanner Scott in January. But they didn't, and they had one last opportunity to trade for Tanner Scott at the deadline, and they decided not to, and now the Padres are 13-4 since Padres ownership decided that they believed in that roster. And the Yankees are, again, about a 500 team against some really bad rosters because their biggest bullpen additions were somebody that everybody knew might be gone before September, probably wouldn't make the playoff roster unless he rebounded immediately. He didn't. Plus, somebody who can get you that swing and miss, shows up, doesn't look like somebody who has a lot of untapped potential to me. Looks like a solid reliever who will have his moments, but will mostly fight through traffic on the bases and occasionally get you a big strikeout. That was the deadline in a summer when they really needed a go-for-it deadline and had opportunities ahead of them. Too many people have access to data now. So if your strategy is to beat Brian Cashman and to look for, rocks that haven't been turned over yet in an attempt to better your bullpen in a way that nobody else could have been smart enough to figure out, spoiler alert, most of baseball has already gone through all those options and decided against pursuing them. So there's got to be a reason.
Cheers to Brian Cashman. I'm sorry, guys. My math was off because I'm stupid. Clay Holmes has blown 10 of his last 23 save opportunities. So when we say it's been a coin flip, it has literally been a fucking coin flip. And it's getting worse again.
And last night you go, it's been like a week since he's blown a save. Yeah. Like, is he over it? Has he gotten over that hump, or are we due for the one blown save every week and a half? And then there you go. There you have it. It's not surprising anymore. You can't be surprised. This team's not going to – you can't play the what-if game. You can't look and say, oh, they'd be 5 wins better if only they had, this closer. No, they're just not going to be 5 wins better because they do have this closer, and they're probably going to be a couple wins worse as the year drags on.
Well, it's the corner turning. It's like, oh, is this the famous Yankees? We're expecting bounce backs. Okay, great. Where is it? And then we buy into it. We're like, oh man, like Clay Holmes, couple of scoreless outings. This could be it. Nope. You can't go 3-3 against the Tigers and the White Sox. It just cannot happen. This is the time to capitalize. The Yankees already went through their bad stretch. This team has no more excuses. Management has no more excuses. I don't want to hear what Aaron Boone has to say anymore. I just don't. We'll get into Dominguez in a second, but I'll quickly go over my Jazz Chisholm, Brian Cashman, not Jazz Chisholm theory, but Brian Cashman theory. Every deadline, and we have history of it, is evidence of actually most trades, right? Most trades the Yankees have made are to minimize risk and to not give more, to go over the top, to get that talent that everybody else covets, to get that unique edge over the rest of the contenders. If you go back to 2017, this all started with the Giancarlo Stanton deal with the Marlins. Why did the Yankees make that deal? Pretty easy to know. Who was the guy who owned that team? Jeffrey Loria? That fucking crazy guy?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, yeah.
Yeah, he was looking to sell at that time. They had signed Giancarlo Stanton or he did sell, and the new management was looking. I forgot what it was. Either way, Giancarlo Stanton had signed the largest contract in North American sports history, $325 million. The Yankees saw a lane to get in there, bail the Marlins out, get some cash with it, not surrender any prospects to hurt them because they were absorbing all that money, a unique thing they're able to do with smaller market, mid-market teams. Giancarlo Stanton, for as much as we do enjoy him, has not been the acquisition this team has needed. He's been essentially an immediate permanent DH ever since. He has not been one of the better DHs in the game. He has kept the Yankees, or at least not him personally. His contract has given the Yankees an excuse to not go after other top position player free agents. We've talked about it a million times. We don't have to keep beating the dead horse, but you keep going down the list. Every time Brian Cashman tries to skate by, he tries to weasel his way in and out of trade talks and get a discount or uncover that special player that you were alluding to before, that everybody else is doing. This is no secret. Everybody's trying to get that edge and look for that player that's not going to cost them a boatload of prospects, but is going to bring some production. So let's keep going down the list. Brandon Drury deal with the Diamondbacks. What happened to him? Concussion, couldn't see, was useless. Tried to get him for cheap, didn't work. Zach Britton deal with the Orioles. That was a mishmash of prospects to get a high leverage reliever, and then they made the mistake of signing Britton to a ridiculous contract extension. That did not work out. J.A. Happ deal with the Blue Jays. In-division trade from a division rival that was looking to sell. J.A. Happ, outside of that stretch after the trade deadline, didn't really do much for the Yankees. Lance Lynn deal with the Cardinals, tried to buy low there. James Paxton deal with the Mariners, tried to buy low there. Edwin Encarnacion deal with the Mariners, tried to buy low there. Jamison Tyone deal with the Pirates, same thing. Rougned Odor deal with the Rangers. Don't know what that was. We still don't know. Joey Gallo was another mishmash of prospects. Here's 4 guys. We'll see if we can make it work. And guess what? I give him credit for that because those players were largely not needed, and only one of them has panned out. Anthony Rizzo deal with the Cubs. They actually surrendered a decent amount for that. I supported the move at the time. That cut in front of the Red Sox, but still, Anthony Rizzo was good for a year total, if that, and then has not been able to play since. Andrew Heaney deal with the Angels. Buy low situation for pitching depth. Didn't work out. Josh Donaldson IKF deal. Absorbing salary, not working. We saw what happened. Andrew Benintendi, mishmash of prospects, immediately injured. Scott Effross deal with the Cubs. Don't know what that was. Frankie Montas deal with the Athletics. Harrison Bader, Jordan Montgomery, Alex Verdugo deal with the Red Sox. Hey, we'll take a problem off your hands for not much. Oh, turns out he's a problem. Not very good. Caleb Ferguson deal and Victor Gonzalez deal with the Dodgers. Dodgers are trying to clear roster space. Yankees think they can unlock something that the Dodgers haven't unlocked. I guess you could try that. Didn't work either. Was way worse. John Birdie deal with the Marlins. Again, trading with a familiar partner who they know they can maybe take advantage of. John Birdie's injured most of the year.
Where's John Birdie? Where's John Birdie at, by the way? Like, would love to see John Birdie who earlier at end of May collapsed on the field coming out of the batter's box. Everybody thought he had a torn Achilles.
Yeah.
Then we were told he actually doesn't. It's just a really bad strain. He'll be back in a month and a half to 2 months. That's fantastic. It's August 19th. It's been 3 months since he was initially injured. May 24th at San Diego. Is John Birdie a king among men? Future MVP? No. Gives you some athleticism, gives you some bat to ball skills, could really help as a veteran presence. Where the hell is he? Why acquire anyone at any point in time?
Yeah. And then it's booked the history of transactions. These are 21 trades that I went through. There are some in there in between that aren't classified as like, the Juan Soto deal is not in there, even though the Yankees did spend time negotiating that package because they didn't want to surrender Michael King. Michael King was almost a non-starter to get Juan Soto in the Bronx. And imagine if we didn't have Juan Soto in the Bronx right now and Michael King instead. Michael King having a very good season, but the impact is not the same. Needless to say, this is all bookended. Giancarlo Stanton in 2017, Jazz Chisholm right now. They went to the Marlins to bargain for Jazz Chisholm because he, again, having a league average season, was viewed as an overrated player, was viewed as a problem in the clubhouse. Again, we think that that's not true, but those rumors were attached to him, and it probably scared off other teams from making a deal. So once again, Brian Cashman swoops in. Hey, here's an underwhelming package of prospects to get 2 more years of control of this player, and we can maybe benefit from it. So every time Brian Cashman tries to cut a corner or capitalize on a deal or take advantage of a trade partner, it more often than not blows up in his face, and here we are. It's just the process that is not working. We saw his giant tirade at the GM meetings or whatever it was when he went off and he was, look, injuries suck. Injuries happen. Yes, but injuries happen more times than not with your trades. So there is something wrong with the process. It is not bad luck for a decade. It's not that. It's the manner in which this organization continues to approach trade talks and continues to avoid the bigger names in these trade talks, especially at the deadline. This team does make offseason trades. It's a little bit easier to do that. The stakes are usually lower because there's not a premium on certain players. There's not this demand with all these other contenders rushing to the front of the line willing to pay more because you're desperate to make a 2-month push for the postseason. Whatever this process is not working. I don't know how many more years we have to come out here and say this. I don't know how many more times we can have a different iteration of this podcast, but it's not. It ain't working. We're looking at it right now. We do have good news on Jazz Chisholm's injury. Could be back after the IL stint is over. Said he's already feeling better. MRI didn't reveal anything serious enough to warrant Tommy John surgery, so that's great. But guess what? He's injured 14 games in. One guy's DFA'd. The other guy who was supposed to serve as 7 or 8 or 9 inning is not that at all, sadly. Don't know what else to tell you. They had a prime opportunity to sell high on certain guys. They didn't do it in the offseason when they were pressed to trade Spencer Jones. Again, we're not going to entirely blame them for that, but if this team is gun shy at the trade deadline every single year, then the front office should have maybe capitalized before they had to cut the line for all these other contenders to bid for a Jason Adam if they needed to, or bid for a Tanner Scott, or whoever else changed hands at this deadline that we might have wanted over these other players. So the problem is in the process, and the person to blame is Brian Cashman. And now we can get, well, you could say something on that if you want, but now we can get into Aaron Boone and how we still don't treat players the right way.
I'm down to that. I mean, the trade deadline stuff speaks for itself. Aaron Boone's lineup construction, and your fans are quick to be like, well, he doesn't have any hand in the lineup construction. It's really all the front office. He claims he does, so we're going to attack him like he does. And if it's the front office, then great, another feather in Cashman's cap. But a must-win game yesterday, I would say. Even though after you lose the Saturday game, you kind of have to write it off mentally because you're facing Skubal, but as the game goes on, you have a better chance of winning that game. At the very least, you want to put yourself in the best position you can be in to beat Tarek Skubal. We got some fun nuggets before this one when the lineup dropped. first of all, Jasson Dominguez comes up as the 27th man. Who knew you needed a 27th man for the Little League Classic? Not me, but he comes up, but that's great. We've been begging for him for a while. He shook some rust off in the minors. He's up to 290 with a high 700s OPS. Okay, fine. He's starting to look more like himself at the AAA level. I don't mind seeing it, but gets promoted for just one day as an extra man. We can't find a lane for him to play unless it's replacing Alex Verdugo against the Cy Young winner in the AL. And then, okay, that's the lane. It's you have a lefty on lefty battle with a struggling outfielder who's allergic to batting gloves, as we learned last week.
And tattoos.
Yeah.
Covered in tattoos, covered in batting gloves.
Got to stop getting it. He was wearing batting gloves all over his body. Shouldn't be doing that.
Wearing on his head.
And then you end up, so that's the lane for Dominguez. Hand up. Alex Verdugo's been bad since end of May. We'll replace him against the Cy Young winner with the prospect you guys have all been waiting to see. But don't worry, he goes down at the end of this game. You won't see him again until September 1st at the earliest. So again, Jasson Dominguez not good enough to participate regularly, but good enough to bat fifth against Tarik Skubal. That's how we're pulling things together these days. Good luck, kid. And spoiler alert, he wasn't very good and double clutched on the winning run. Although the game had been essentially lost already when Holmes did his thing. It's hard to regain control of that game. They didn't, and they probably would have lost regardless, whether Dominguez makes a great throw to the plate or not. But they would have at least had a chance. And they didn't have a chance because he held the baseball, and then threw the baseball in. So again, not good enough, not valuable, not worth our time. Unless the best pitcher in baseball is on the mound, then he's hitting fifth. Surely the Yankees' emerging catcher of the future played in this game, too, after welcoming Jose Trevino back. Trevino caught the Gerrit Cole start on Friday night. He was very good behind the plate, or at least Gerrit Cole was, so I assume Trevino was as well. Wells caught the day game after the night game, then had the time off between a day game and a night game the next night with a day off looming on Monday. You want to get Wells some rest? Monday's your day. It's a full off day. Even had a day and a half between starts Saturday and Sunday. Should have been batting sixth against the tough lefty, Skubal. If he's your catcher of the future, it certainly seemed like he might be based on his efforts in June, July, and August. You want to get him as many reps against tough pitchers as possible. Sadly, the Yankees decided to willingly downgrade the offense there, give Trevino 2 starts in a 3-game series, glue Wells to the bench instead of helping him out. Remember when we just used to bench Ben Rice against lefties too? Now Ben Rice doesn't play ever. So 2 important pieces in your future who've shown varying degrees of productivity so far. Wells looks like a star and a potential rookie of the year if he got the full runway. Rice, I don't know what he is. The 3-homer game against the Red Sox was very nice. A lot of lowlights from him lately, but also a good deal of professional at-bats. I like him as a ball player. He was once upon a time benched against lefties. Now he's kind of benched all the time. Austin Wells benched against tough lefties. When will we ever learn what he can do against tough lefties? If this was his first day off in a month, Tarik Skubal's a great opportunity to do that. Instead, it was the rubber game in a semi-must-win series for a New York Yankees team that has like 2.5 or 3 offensive pieces you can rely on, and Wells is one of them, and he sits. So, cool. Great. Shred it.
Friday was the craziest to me. Trevino's activated, immediately gets a start, and the Tigers are going with a right-handed opener. Why is that the opportunity to sit Wells?
Gerrit Cole probably just asked.
Whatever. I mean, Austin Wells has caught Gerrit Cole before, so like this is not anything crazy or new. It's not rewarding good play. Austin Wells has been the 3rd best hitter on this team over the last month, and he is being rewarded by being benched. This is what the Yankees do. Anthony Volpe and this is another thing for me. I like Anthony Volpe as a human, as an athlete. The kid does not have it fully. He cannot keep getting trotted out there every single day. If you have an argument to sit Austin Wells ever over this month stretch, ever, whether it's matchups, whether it's rest because he's a catcher, whether it's, you have another veteran in the mix who could provide a better game calling opportunity with one of your better pitchers. If you have 3 of those excuses with a reason to sit someone like Austin Wells, who's been a better player for the most part offensively than Anthony Volpe this year, then you should have at least that many excuses to sit Anthony Volpe once. Anthony Volpe has not gotten any days of rest He has not gotten benched for poor performance over his last 14 days, 109 average, 332 OPS. I understand that this is part of the growing pain as a young player, but the stretches that he goes in when he struggles, he is a black hole on offense. He contributes next to nothing, and then he does end up making a few of those gaffes in the field where you're like, what's going on? What's happening? I don't get this. So it's this inconsistent treatment of players. Again, you have Oswaldo Cabrera and Oswald Peraza here. More than enough opportunity to rest Anthony Volpe. You cannot get worse on offense than Anthony Volpe right now. So giving Oswald Peraza a start at shortstop and resting Anthony Volpe would not be a problem. Oswaldo Cabrera, on fire, clutch hits, providing this team a spark at the bottom of the lineup when he's asked to do it. Excellent defense at third base. There is a way to get him in the lineup. On Friday night, we're benching him in favor of Peraza, and we have LeMahieu in the lineup. Just put Peraza at short and keep Oswaldo at third and figure something else out. Like there are ways to do this, and Aaron Boone is not doing it. Again, I will gladly blame the front office for all of this, but Aaron Boone says he has full control over his lineups, and he makes all those decisions. So this is the person we're going to go after. There is no way you can justify playing Anthony Volpe every day under these circumstances. There isn't. There is no way you can justify benching or sitting Austin Wells for lefty-righty matchups or pitcher-catcher preferences when he is hitting the way that he's hitting. I'm sorry. Right now, you need to capitalize on the soft spot of your schedule. You are not doing it. The job is to play the best lineup, the best hitters, and formulate that lineup the best way you can. Stop batting Gleyber Torres leadoff. Don't care if he got 2 hits last night. Never happens. Why are we batting I don't care that Jasson Dominguez came up for the one game. Like, it is what it is, whatever. It was like an hour and 20 minutes from Scranton, so it's not like he had to make a crazy trip to get to where he needed to go. But Brian Cashman is fucking telling me that there's no lane for playing time in this guy on the roster, and then he gets called up for one game in prime time on national television against the AL Cy Young frontrunner, and he's batting 5th all of a sudden. So there's no lane for him, like you said, but how about the national spotlight against the best pitcher maybe in the league, who's a lefty, and Dominguez is better from the left side of the plate, so it's forcing him to switch over to the right side, which he's still good with, but it's clearly not his better side. So flaws everywhere with how this team is managed, with the performance of the players, with, again, it's just not capitalizing on strengths. It's not working to fix weaknesses. It's not leaning into whatever's working for the team. And if Austin Wells proved anything over the last month, it's that for the time being, again, I'm open for jobs to still kind of be up in the air. Like, am I going to name Austin Wells the starter right now because he had a good 5 weeks? No. Or am I going to name him the starter forever because he had a good 5 weeks? No, but he's the starter right now. He earned the spot. Jose Trevino did not really have a good first half. He just didn't. He had the luxury of more playing time, didn't get the job done, then got injured for a month. We've seen plenty of players get injured for a month and then not really get factored into the plans. Happened to Oswald Peraza last year. Gone. Sorry. The way the Yankees treat their prospects, the way they treat their young players, even in the Anthony Volpe has, I guess, the red carpet pulled out for him, but it's not doing him any favors. It's getting him in a worse spot in a crucial development year, and I couldn't agree with it less. And yeah, like, sure, Orioles fans come in here like, yeah, we're complaining with one of the teams with the best records in baseball. This team, talent-wise, yes, has the capability to have one of the best records in baseball. Like, that's bottom line here. That's just the foundation of what we built. Highest payroll in the league, second highest payroll in the league, whatever. They constructed this team to have a bottom line of first or second in the division. And everything else that they can do to elevate themselves and be better, they don't do properly. Player acquisitions, lineup decisions, treatment of players, all failures, and it's not even close. So Again, I don't know how this is inspiring any confidence for October. You cannot go 3-3 against the White Sox and the Tigers. You cannot. Don't know how else to describe that to you. This is not what championship caliber teams do. I understand that every team goes through a bad stretch. I'll say it again. Already happened for the Yankees. 11-24. That's it. That's all you get. You did it. It's done. Now, everything from this point forward needs to be relatively ironclad, and they're not doing that.
8-7 against the Blue Jays, Angels, Rangers, White Sox, Tigers. And some of that was doubleheader madness. And some of that was bad luck and bad timing. And yeah, obviously Tarek Skubal, not who you want when you're facing these teams that are struggling. But I don't care.
And your closer has to close the game.
Yeah, I don't care. It's on the Yankees. You can't go. You can blame the doubleheader. You can blame the weather if you'd like for 1 or 2 losses. 8-7. I mean, if you're a good team, you put your foot down against this poor opposition. You got to go 11-4. Like you have to really not drop many of these games. You run into Tarek Skubal, it's okay because you've already won the series. You're not playing a rubber match. You've already won the series. You drop one half of a doubleheader, it's okay because you won all the games surrounding it, right? You had a really chance to run up the score. That's what contenders do. That's not what the New York Yankees have done. And I can't believe I'm really reading an Orioles fan saying, like, well, you think you have it bad? We lost Tyler Wells and John Means. We both have it not great. The Yankees have lost a lot of talent. The Orioles have lost a lot of talent. That's left both teams even up in the division. And the Orioles have more depth to cover it. The Yankees are playing, retreads and pieces who shouldn't see the light of day. And they're still managing to drop like flies via accidents. Jazz Chisholm wasn't even, you're talking to me about injuries, and Jazz Chisholm narrowly avoided a UCL tear last week. And we're not allowed to talk about injuries. Meanwhile, the trade deadline, an opportunity to reinforce this roster. They go ahead, the flip side, they go ahead and get Jazz. We like it. They get Mark Leiter. We liked it for 5 seconds. I should have maintained what I said the minute he was dealt when I tweeted, I can confidently state that Jack Neely is better than Mark Leiter Jr. Mark Leiter Jr. traded for Jack Neely and an additional prospect, Ben Cowles, who's another 40-man roster fodder guy this offseason. Neely should have trusted my gut. Shouldn't have gotten swayed by the splitter people and the people telling me that there was something we weren't seeing in Leiter, even though his ERA was above 4 and now is higher above 4 than it was before. Jack Neely, AAA for the Iowa Cubs, 6 2/3 innings, 4 hits, an unearned run, and 13 strikeouts. Worth giving a chance, especially as we wait eternally for Ian Hamilton and Nick Birdie and Scott Effross to re-find himself again. We're stuck just waiting and treading water. The Jazz Chisholm trade, I'd do it again, but Jared Serna, the Yankees never gave him a chance. The Yankees clearly had no plans to protect him on the 40-man roster this offseason. Hitting .371 in his first 17 games at AA. Did he reach AA with the Yankees? No, he didn't. He was at high A with New York, proving all he had to prove, looking kind of bored, gets elevated to AA immediately again. .371 with a nearly 1,000 OPS. Only 1 home run. Not necessarily a power guy, good piece. Do I think the Yankees could be in a better spot moving forward with the names that they kept? Absolutely. Caleb Durbin is back at AAA. Would love to see him in the bigs before an eternity has expired. Might have to wait till next year because, the Yankees aren't bound for a shakeup this September. They're waiting till September 1st to elevate Jasson Dominguez. Again, they might wait to September 1st to elevate John Birdie. That might be their 2 expanded roster spots because he was recently cleared for contact and has to go on another rehab assignment. They'll probably make that rehab assignment last until September 1st when they can move him up without getting rid of Peraza or Oswaldo Cabrera. I'm just so tired. They're one of many teams that are pretty good. They could be a World Series champion. They could accidentally catch fire, but they have never done that. A lot of teams have done that. When's the last time the Yankees won the World Series? When they were the best roster in baseball by far and spent $500 million in an offseason and had to pull out some games late against the Twins, against the Angels, late rallies and great postseason. I love 2009. We're coming up on the 15th anniversary of it at Old Timers Day. What a postseason that was. But the Yankees entered that postseason like the 2024 Dodgers as heavy favorites. And it got dicey a couple times, but ultimately they won the World Series. And good for them. And if they hadn't won the World Series as a heavy favorite, we'd be talking about a drought that lasted from 2000 to present. But look at the teams that have underperformed in the regular season and randomly caught fire to go on deep playoff runs. The 2000 Yankees had an awful September and recovered and did it, but I wouldn't put them in that category because that was a dynasty. That was the 96, 98, 99 champions going for a 4th title in 5 years. And they regrouped and they did it. But teams that have caught a heater, the Phillies in 22, the D-backs in 23, the Rangers in 23, the Red Sox in 21. Somebody does it every year, and it's never the Yankees. Just never is. If they're the favorites, occasionally they get the job done. If they're an underdog, they flame out before they should.
Nationals in 2019.
Yeah, it happens pretty much every year. Somebody gets a little bit of magic in their bats, a little bit of electricity in their right arms. I'll tell you a time it happened. 2006 with Mr. 10-plus blown saves himself, Jason Isringhausen and the Cardinals. It's doable, but in order for this Yankees team to make a run, they could have just put their foot down at the deadline and said, F you, Jack Flaherty, Tanner Scott, Mark Leiter Jr., Jazz Chisholm, Isak Paredes, taste my tailpipe. We're really going for it. Instead, they get Jazz. We like it. They get Leiter. We're willing to tolerate it. And it turns out it's a bad move. They get Aniel De Los Santos, and then he's already gone. Congrats to the White Sox. You got yourselves a good one. And now we're sitting hoping for lightning to strike, which it never has for this franchise. So not saying the Yankees never go on postseason runs, but they go on postseason runs when they're supposed to occasionally. They never just show up in the playoffs. It's never, hey, all you got to do is get in, because then you can get hot. That's what the Yankees like to sell you. That's what every owner trying to make a massive profit likes to sell you. Happens to teams. It really does. It does not happen in the New York Yankees, and they're going to need it to this year.
Yep. They're forgot what I was going to say, but I had a good point.
Ooh.
They're blowing my mind every day. In terms of what we were talking about before the deadline, we were saying they had to get rid of 2 or at least one of DJ LeMahieu, Gleyber Torres, Alex Verdugo. They didn't. Wonder how they're performing in the second half. Let's look. DJ LeMahieu, 24 games, 206 average, 576 OPS. Gleyber Torres, 25 games, 257 average, 681 OPS. Barely better than his awful first half. Second half for Alex Verdugo, 227 average, 610 OPS, which is bad. So you keep employing below average hitters and thinking a change will randomly come around, and this is what you get. You rely on injuries to fortify the roster in the second half, and you don't have any definitive updates on any of those players whose situations are largely precarious. Ian Hamilton's been injured on and off for 2 years. Did he get injured 2 years ago?
He was hurt. We picked him up with a scrap heap prior to last season.
Okay, so he's been consistently injured for a full calendar year, you would say. Nick Birdie, extensive injury history.
Don't know how many bullets are in that arm. I mean, if you're gonna, maybe you might get 8 more good innings out of Nick Birdie if you were to elevate him in the coming weeks. But there's no way I'm like, oh yeah, postseason depth chart. Nick Birdie's got the 7th inning locked down. Exactly. I mean, I have to see it for more than 10 more days to understand that.
Exactly. Scott Effross, not a great track record. Then Tommy John, then back surgery. Lou Trevino, Tommy John surgery. And these are the guys they're counting on. This was baked into the post-trade deadline plan. So I hope Juan Soto's a sucker for marketing, because when the offseason comes and we're in a situation where this team fell short, again, I'm rooting for them to go all the way. It would make me very happy.
They could make us look silly.
Wouldn't that be cool?
The potential is there. They could make us look silly.
They could all these guys. Yeah, there could be cosmic factors that have all these players turn it around. DJ LeMahieu turns into the machine when the playoffs arrive. Alex Verdugo's clutch gene from the first month of this season returns in grand fashion. Gleyber Torres reverts to a semblance of his 2018-2019 self. Anthony Volpe doesn't do what he's doing right now and becomes more of the 5-tool-esque player that we've seen in spans of 15 to 20 games. But you can't bet on that. That's just luck of the draw. And the Yankees have not had luck by their side, so you would think that they would try to ensure that with the best possible roster or the best possible depth surrounding the players that they believe in, and they don't have that. And even when they do have the depth, like right now, I would say the depth is actually solid. You have Austin Wells / Jose Trevino on the bench. You have Oswaldo Cabrera on the bench. You have Oswald Peraza on the bench, and you could have a situation where Jasson Dominguez is on the bench. So that's pretty solid depth, but they're not utilizing those guys at all properly. Oswaldo Cabrera is not getting the playing time he deserves as he continues to deliver for this team. Oswald Peraza rewarded with a promotion because he's been hot at AAA, but not rewarded with spelling the guy at shortstop who took the job from him and is performing just as bad as he is, if not worse, you could argue. If Oswald Peraza had the same playing time as Anthony Volpe for the last 2 years, how different do you think the numbers would be? It's just food for thought, because it can't get worse than a 6-something, a mid-6 OPS. It just can't. And then again, Jasson Dominguez should be here. Shouldn't be here for one game, emphasized as an important hitter, and then sent back to Pennsylvania. Should simply just be here, worked into the mix for the final 6 weeks of the season, figure out how you can construct the best lineup before the playoffs arrive, and that's that. But again, no direction, just trying to buy time with guys who are not good enough, and then I guess make the decision tougher on them when September, October arrives. I don't know what the plan is. There is no discernible plan. They pretend like they act in secrecy or operate in the shadows. And then when they make the decisions in front of our face, we're like, that was it? Why is that it? How did we get there? And that's what's characterizing this season. Don't care if they're 20 games over 500. I don't care if it sounds like I'm complaining. It's what I'm watching. Even in the wins, it's like, you beat the Tigers 3-0 on Friday. It's like, whew. Ooh, thank God. Didn't waste a really good Gerrit Cole start. Offense nowhere to be found in a bullpen game against the Tigers. Okay. I don't know, I guess. Hands in the air. Don't know.
And even if it all comes together and Volpe catches a heater and Glaber is useful and Verdugo is clutch and Dominguez fits in seamlessly, who are you handing the ball to when you got a 9th inning lead in the playoffs? The guy with the 10+ blown saves.
Yep.
Thanks for podcasting with us. See you again on Thursday. I'm Adam Weinrib. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Weinrib. We'll be live again, 2 o'clock Eastern, Thursday. Every Monday, every Thursday. Just wanted to get better. Let's catch that heater. Even in 2021, the most annoying season we remember, they caught a heater in August. We were briefly hopeful. This is the easiest August. Facile. So they could have run up the score again, and then they could have entered a crapshoot playoffs, and we would be riding high, and then we would be more disappointed. At least this time, our expectations have remained low because of what we've seen. Yay. I'm Adam Weinrib again, at Adam Weinrib. Thomas Carannante, where can the people find you?
At Tommy's_takes. Don't spell out underscore. It's the actual icon.
Yeah. Imagine spelling out underscore.
Some people might.
Yeah, I think they would.
Head on over to the official Yanks Go Yard Twitter account at Yanks Go Yard FS. A lot of stuff there. yanksgoyard.com has all the content you need. We're going to be there whether it's good or bad. So you can count on us. We're going to absorb all the emotions and the feelings and the vibes, and we're going to put it into digestible form for you to read right before bed. So thanks for heading on over there, reading all of our content, tuning in today. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We appreciate it very much. Otherwise, I guess this is it. They have a month. They have a couple weeks to get through this easy part of the schedule, and then they have to take care of business down the stretch. And I don't know how good I feel about it, but we'll talk to you again on Thursday, and we'll see.
I'm angry. I'm bored. I'm stale. Let's go Yankees. We'll see you on Thursday.